Welcome to Canada Files. I'm Valerie Pringle. My guest today is Jann Arden. She's a singer-songwriter who's produced 16 albums, including a new one this year. She's in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Jann has also written 6 books, including her memoirs, as well as a novel. She starred in her own sitcom and has a podcast, and she says she's living proof that good things come from bad things. Hi, Jann.
Valerie!
Jann!
Holy moly, we were just sitting here talking about the good old days, which are still happening.
Well,
still
I know.
The good old days.
But because I was going to ask you, I mean, when I was first talking to you, you know, you're a singer-songwriter, you've done that for decades. Then you're a writer, nonfiction, fiction, an actor, a podcaster. So, you know, have you figured out what drives this need for self-expression? Or is it just because you're an artist?
I mean, not to be too esoteric about it, but I just love doing stuff. And I'm not particularly concerned if I suck. Like, I think it's really important. And it's like you said, creative people create. But I just want my hand in every honeypot. And I love doing it. I work with great people that encourage me. And you know, my mom said to me when I was a kid, she goes, "Jann, you do not have to be a great writer to tell a great story." And that really stuck with me as a teenager. And I've always felt that way about my songwriting as well, Valerie. Yeah.
So, but, you know, just to think of the things that you've tried and, you know, been brave about. Are you not afraid of failure?
No. I fail more than I succeed, that's for sure. I mean, I'm getting better now, but I think when I was younger, I was kind of a loose cannon and just was like a wrecking ball going through life, not very focused. But I was, you know, drinking and being young, and I had a few hits, and I'm on a bus and I'm careening around the planet, you know, with Insensitive, and which is 30 years old, by the way, 31 years old. And when I got older, and there was grace in that, and you know that as you get older, I just thought, I'm going to focus on the things that I like to do. And they're all connected when you think about it. Writing nonfiction and fiction is still a type of storytelling. You know, writing music very much lends itself to that genre as well. Podcasting is talking. I work with 2 young women that are hilariously funny. They have a very different take on the world than me. But I just really like it, and I like being busy.
One of your great lines is that good things can come from bad things, which you attribute really your career to. The fact that you were kind of hiding from a mean, scary alcoholic dad.
Yeah, he was very unpredictable. And when you're 9 years old, alcoholism is, you don't understand what's happening to an adult. You know, my mom, I'd catch her crying in the sewing room, and she didn't really want to talk about it, but I didn't have the emotional capacity to help her. You know, I think about that. But yeah, I just knew to stay out of his way. He was drunk enough one day to let me and my little brother join the Columbia Record Club. And if you're a certain age, you remember the Columbia Record Club. And we had these albums show up every month, and I just was in heaven. And I learned to play Mom's guitar by ear. And pretty much from the word go, I was making up songs. And I wrote songs down there, hundreds of terrible songs, until I was 18. No one knew I was singing and playing guitar.
So were you Karen Carpenter to begin with?
I wish. I think I was quite terrible, but I copied Bette Midler, and I copied Streisand, and I copied Carly Simon, and I copied Janis Ian. I just took painstaking time to every syllable, and I just learned that way. I still to this day don't read or, you know, read music. But yeah, and I just had written all these zany songs. And when I was 18, I finally kind of broke it to my mom. I said, "Listen, I'm singing a song at my high school grad." "You're what?" "Well, I didn't even know you liked music." So.
Tell me about your voice. I mean, you say you don't read music, you sort of played in the basement, trained yourself. It's so distinctive. Do you take care of it? Did it just spring that way? Were you just lucky to have that voice?
I think I started out pretty whiny. But like I said, I just copied people. And when I started writing my own music, I didn't have anyone to copy. I had to go off on my own. I had to go march up that mountain on my own because I'm singing words that nobody could show me how to do it. But I don't know. I don't really do warm-ups. I have not lost my voice very many times in my life. I'm a pretty rugged, sturdy vocalist when it comes to that. I don't do a lot of fancy trills. I don't have a lot of tricks. I think I'm very pedestrian. And you know, Karen Carpenter was my idol. And I mean that in a way where I sing the song. I don't go off into some unknown place. I mean, you'll hear a lot of young singers. I'm not going to name names, but I heard this one particular girl who was very famous do Silent Night. And it took me 3/4 of the song to figure out what song she was singing, because it was like that. And I, don't have the chops for it. And that's just, I learned from Bette Midler and Carly and just really solid singer-songwriters. So I don't think about it much. I like my voice, and I think it is recognizable. And I think that's been really good for me in my career, that if you hear a line, you know it's me.
So your mom, after you shocked them at graduation and there was some inclination that maybe you could do this, you know, basically though said not, oh, forget it, but why not you? Mm-hmm. Which is like a great thing to say. Why not?
Yeah, I think they were really scared. Dad and I would lay in bed and wonder what in the heck you'd get up to. I left home finally at 20, and I was like a 14-year-old, 20-year-old. I was so naive. And I left my mom crying in the driveway. And I really learned. I went out to Vancouver and was busking in the streets and thinking that this is how you break into music. I was so naive. But having said that, I was in bar bands in Dawson and Yellowknife and Whitehorse and Smithers and going through the interior of British Columbia. But it was such a learning ground, which I don't think young people do anymore. It's like you go into a contest, or you
go on YouTube or
you go on YouTube or TikTok, and you have these 15-second phenomena, things that are streamed 1 billion times, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine, because the world changes. It changes how we absorb new artists. But I think, yeah, I'm glad for those really dark...
And they were dark years in Vancouver, too. You said just a spiral of...
drinking, promiscuous. I always worried, I'm like, oh my gosh, if my mom could see me now.
But you know, there are a couple of stories that are, you know, you were busking and
Gastown.
Somebody came up to you?
Well, I had about $4 in my case, and I even know the little enclave where I was busking. It's still there. But I was just playing away, probably some made-up song, and I got punched. And they just wanted the money in my case. And excuse me, I'm so grateful that he didn't take my guitar. My guitar was there, but he did knock me out. Like not long, but just enough to I really hurt my cheek, and I hurt my eye socket, and my head was black and blue, green. And I was embarrassed. I didn't have any money to get home to North Vancouver on the C bus, so I snuck on, and through some miracle I didn't get caught. But good things come out of bad things, you know. It didn't deter me. I thought, you know, maybe this isn't for me, but...
Well, why didn't you give up?
I don't know. I didn't know what else to do, and I just kept going back to it. It's like that moth to the flame. I really liked it. And I think, if I'm honest with myself, I wasn't really trying to get anywhere. I just really liked doing it. My mom cut me out a little ad in the paper. I had been at home for 3 or 4 months, kind of licking my wounds, and it was for a wedding singer. And I got the job in this band, and then Neil McGonigal started following me around. He was the first kind of manager I started working with, and that would have been, mid-80s, like 87, 88. And, you know, he said, I think I can get you a record deal. And we just worked and worked and worked. We were turned down by everybody dozens of times.
You say
too high, too low, too fast.
A great collection of rejection letters.
The best. I still have some. We used to actually get letters from, it's not for us, you're too depressing. I don't know, it just didn't deter me. I mean, at the very end, when we got turned down for the last time, which I thought was the last time, Alan Reed, he is still a friend of mine all these years later, but he got my cassette, and he was a fellow that was turned on to us by a guy named Chappell. And he's like, Alan, listen to this. I can't do anything with it right now, but maybe you'll hear something. Well, he listened to it in his car, and he's like, I don't get it. And that was when I was almost 30, and I thought, I have to do something. I'm so broke. My parents are just like over it. I'm always borrowing money from them. And luckily for me, his fiance broke up with him. And so when he came back to work like a week later, after licking his wounds, good things come out of bad things. It was his bad thing. And he got into his car, and a song called I Just Don't Love You Anymore was the song that came up on the cassette. And he pulled over, I think, to a gas station or something and just said, I don't know if you'll ever sell a record, but I get it. I get what you do.
And you've got a record deal.
I'm with the same company for 32 years now.
But when they said that to you, you said you cried.
I did. I walked down the street and I just had I didn't cry out loud. I was in disbelief.
What kind of career did you think you'd have?
I wanted to be a school teacher.
No, but even as a singer, once you got signed, especially when you had like big success with Insensitive, did you think, I'm going to be Celine Dion?
No, I was quite frightened of it. It was a really daunting experience. My management company was very ill-equipped. We were just zinging around the world. I didn't really have a band to support me. I was just playing my old Martin guitar. It was unorganized. Money was going this way, that way, the other way. I was doing Letterman and Leno and the Today Show and Good Morning America and the little glimmer of success that I had in the United States, 1994. And I mean, trust me when I tell you, when you're looking at David Letterman and those eyebrows in this cold studio, I was just in disbelief. I don't even think I had a chance to enjoy it because it was chaos. It was, like I said, unorganized. They were ill-prepared. But when it happens and when it hits, if the infrastructure isn't there, it can be really difficult. I didn't last long with them. I actually severed that relationship. So I had my own management company for a decade and just kind of muddled through. And I did as little as possible and worked when I needed to, and I was never focused. And then Bruce Allen got involved. He flew to Calgary. We had dinner at a little place. He sat across from me and he said, "You're not manageable. You're not manageable. You don't listen. And you gotta listen." He said, you could do so much more than you do. And you still have time. And it just kind of shook me. He said, "The record you just worked on is crappy. It's terrible. And you need to start again." It was a cover record. It was one of my Uncover Me series. I did a few of them. And we went back to the drawing board, and the record was a great success. I mean, I had a hit song at 17 off of that record. I sent her a plaque. I sent her a plaque and saying, "Janice, you've got a hit song in Canada again." So, and I've been with Bruce ever since. It's funny, there's no straight path to where you're going to go in the arts. There just isn't.
Do you think it's harder for women?
I did have one guy, the president of the company, very famous story, and this says much more about my mother than him. I'm at a party in Los Angeles. It's a big publishing party. All these famous people. And anyway, the president of A&M literally, in a very earnest, nice way, said, "I'll drop a bunch of you guys home. I got a stretch limo." And he dropped everybody off. I was the last person out of the car. I was staying at the Roosevelt Hotel. And as I'm getting out, this huge man, sucking on a cigar, drinking a cognac, says to me, "Jann, you're 30 pounds away from superstardom in this country." And I ran into my hotel and I phoned my mom, collect. And she said, "Well, why didn't you tell him you didn't want to gain any more weight?" And that was my mom. She just was very, I don't know, she just was very normal. She was just very sensible. Mm-hmm. Like, "Why not you? Why not you? You're as good as Anne Murray," she'd say to me.
The wonderful, I mean, Good Mother has wonderful lines in it, but the refrain, "Be yourself, be yourself." Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to come to that?
I feel like I always was myself. My parents were so fair with me. They were like scared, but they were supportive. And they kind of had that can-do spirit. "Well, you could do anything you set your mind to."
Well, I think who writes a song about good mothers and good fathers?
I thought it was stupid. I thought it was the dumbest song. And it's probably my most talked about song in my career. Bob Foster gave me a cassette. I was driving a Monte Carlo, this giant land barge. And the cassette deck always ate the cassette, but he gave me this piano refrain. Good Mother is 4 chords. The verse progression is the same as the chorus progression, and I love that in music. There's no changes. And anyways, I got out of the hair salon. My friend Stephanie had cut bangs. I was like, oh my God, what has happened? She dyed my hair bright red. And you know, I had the big red lipstick on and I used to darken in my mole. And that was it. That was like my image for the next few years. But anyway, I didn't have a pen, but I smoked back in those days. I opened up my Du Maurier packet, folded it out, you know, this big white canvas. I had a black, of course I had black eyeliner in my purse. And I listened to that cassette that Bob had sent me. I've got money in my pocket. I like the color of my hair. I've got a friend who loves me. Got a house, I've got a car. I wanted to write a piece of crap car, and then, you know, it ended up on the record, which I didn't think it would, because I thought this is so personal to me, but it has been really a phenomenal experience for me, how people react to that song.
Well, I mostly cry when I hear it, you know?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I had a good mother too.
Yeah, it touches a nerve, and it's a great song for funerals and weddings, so it's very versatile. And my mom, the only thing she ever said about that song, imagine you playing that song to your parents. My dad was sitting there with a scowl on his face, and there's a caveat to this. He did get sober. The last 25 years of his life, he was sober.
So his strength does make you cry.
Yeah, he was sober. And you know, that's a major undertaking. He was still a cracker, like he was just so cranky. But my mom said, well, it's got a really good beat. And my dad, years later, because people were always writing me letters about it, Mom and Dad loved to sit at the kitchen table, like in those mid-90s, and read the fan mail. Oh, they'd open it, they'd have a pile, and they'd read them, and Mom would just say, well, I can't believe it. And Dad said to me, you know, I'm in that GD song too. I said, yes, you are, Dad.
Yes,
it's not just your mom. I said, I know that, Dad.
One of probably the greatest things you did was care for your mom as she, you know, declined in Alzheimer's. You decided to share it, put it on Facebook, got incredible response. You wrote a book about it, Feeding My Mother. I mean, what a time, you being the good daughter.
She would have done it for me. And that's all I needed to know. Like, yeah, it's super sad, but it's the hardest thing I ever did and the most rewarding thing I ever did. And I thought, oh my God, the irony of me looking after my dad, the last person in the world that I wanted to help. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned so much about myself. Filial piety, so the idea of looking after parents is very much parts of other cultures. You know, Chinese culture, Japanese, people absorb their elderly parents into the home. Doesn't matter if they have 8 kids or 2 kids or 9. You're going to feed grandma. She's in the corner and someone put her pants on. Right? Not here. We shuttled them off. And I did that the very last possible moment I had to, because it was medical. Their bedroom was upstairs. And she was as happy as Larry when we got her in. We moved her at just the right time.
One of the things you wrote after your mom had died, you said, my mother left me with a lifetime of words. Don't think for a second the things you say to people don't linger and last, because they do. Make them good ones, kind, fair, encouraging. I carry them like a sword or a shield. But she's your North Star.
Very much so. I think about her all the time. And I cried a lot when she was alive. I don't cry so much about her anymore, because she once said to me, Jan, your soul is your pilot and your body is your spaceship. Like, this is full-blown Alzheimer's. She goes, well, you can't take your body where you're going. You just can't breathe. So you have to leave it behind. I felt like she just knew stuff. And Alzheimer's is tough. Like, anyone going through that, keep your wits about you. You'll get there. It's hard. You'll never do anything harder. But at the end of it, when they go, there's such pride. When you carry that pride going forward in your life, I'm telling you, that will get you over so many hard things.
Now, you say you're very like your dad, and you must have been thinking, having seen him in his state as an alcoholic. I'll never be like that. And yet,
I was like that.
You were.
I was an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. And people picture someone who drinks every day, and da-da-da-da-da. I just didn't have a switch to turn it off. And I'm very lucky to be alive. I never hit another car, but I would, end up in the ditch and walk home through the field, and my parents would be like, "Where's your car?" I'm like, "I don't know where it is." I lost my car once for 3 weeks. But yeah, I was just a really crappy drinker and had lots of heart issues. I was in and out of the hospital. And this woman finally said to me, she was a nurse practitioner, "Jann, your heart doesn't like it." She goes, "How much are you drinking?" And I said, "A lot." And she said, "You gotta stop." And I did. And I think that was it's been 9 years now in August. Oh, I'm so lucky. But yeah, it was just, but alcoholism too, people need to be easy on themselves. It's not a character flaw. It's a disease. And my dad genetically handed it to me like a $100 bill. Here, this is what I've got. Good luck with that. The alcohol abuse was inescapable. And I would have been that if I was a dentist. I would have been that if I was a teacher. It wasn't because of the music business. It was sitting there waiting. But I managed to, get out of it.
And it seems you're, loving your 60s. Are you more in control now, or are you just...
Yeah.
You're writing another novel. You're doing all kinds of things.
But I really enjoyed, I just don't want to sit idle. Joan Rivers, in a documentary she did, she goes, the worst thing that she could possibly fathom in her life is an empty calendar. I don't like seeing an empty calendar. I don't want every day filled. And like I said, when I don't work, I really don't work. I hang out with my dog. I'm in the trees. I read a lot. I'll have 4 cups of tea before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I have friends over for dinner. I have a really quiet, small life. I don't live in the city. But when I go and when I work, there we are, there we go. But it's fun. I work with people I really laugh with and I really have a good time with. And I don't have anyone telling me, do this, do that, do that. This is what I'd like to try. How about this? Chris and I are always trying to figure out, what can we do that? Maybe we can try that. Maybe we can do this. And
maybe I can pose naked for Bryan Adams.
Oh, God, what was I thinking? But I'm glad I did. I remember the day we were in New York and he'd done a regular photo shoot and he said, "You're 50, do you want to let me take a picture?" He showed me an example of it, of this beautiful woman with, a beautiful body. And I just thought, you know what, for women, I need to do this for all of us. And I was just turning 50. And I just threw that robe off, laid down. Wasn't, the front of me or anything, it was just my bottom. And he took pictures. And it ended up on the cover of Zoomer. I think it was one of their highest selling Zoomer covers. I'm glad I did it. To be able to look at yourself fairly and without any kind of, oh, I should look like this or should look like that. I've been so many different versions of myself over the years. But I'm still signing those once in a while. Somebody will come up to me in a lineup and they'll slam that nude picture of my butt down and I'm signing my name on my butt.
And you're always giving out advice. People say, well, don't they? They come and, what do I do about drinking?
Well, don't listen to me. Because there's no one way to do anything. If my friends ask me, I'm more than happy to, offer my advice. But they never take it. My friends aren't stupid. They're like, okay, I think I'll do this anyway. But it's nice to be able to feel sage. Mm-hmm. And I always think that I'm a crone, coming out of the trees with my big stick and just doing things on my own terms. And that feels good. I got a chance to interview Jane Goodall this year, and it really was one of the highlights of my life. And just talking to her at 90 years old, she's traveling 300 days a year advocating for animals. And I just think that's where I'd like to go. I'd like to keep doing that in my life and ringing that bell and trying to wake people up of what we're doing to the planet and what we're doing. I mean, she's so knowledgeable and so peaceful. She's a peaceful warrior. She doesn't yell the message, she whispers. She's up there at the microphone and everyone's just listening.
She's amazing.
She's something else.
The final question we always ask is, what does being Canadian mean to you?
Everything. I know we're kind of divisive right now, but my prized possession in my life is my Canadian passport. And this is one of the greatest places to live in the world. And I can say that because I've traveled all over the world. I know what people are facing out there. But people see the news every day and they still somehow just twist what that means. But I'm very, very proud to be Canadian. And I'm going to stay here. I haven't left. I live 5 miles from where I grew up. Yeah, it's pretty incredible to live here and to have the opportunities that I've had.
Yeah, lucky.
Lucky.
Well, I've been lucky. Talk to you again.
Valerie.
Miss, thank you so much.
My great pleasure.
And we'll be back next week with another episode of Canada Files.
The preceding program was made possible through the generous support of David and Cheryl Carr, as well as the following donors: Ted and Alice Kernahan, the Linwood Family Foundation, Jim and Sandy Treliving, the Browning Watt Foundation, Richard Pilosoff, Michael McCain and family, Richard Wernham and Julia West, Mary Davey, Clench House Foundation, Bryce and Nikki Douglas, the 63 Foundation, Tony and Sherry Fell, the Sheila and David Wilson Foundation, and by the Central Canadian Public Television Association.